Look! Up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Brandon Routh's Superman! For many years, Routh was the spiritual successor to Christopher Reeve, who never got a second crack at his take on the Man of Steel. Thankfully, the small screen gave Routh and fans the closure they were looking for. However, what exactly went wrong with Superman Returns? And why didn't Brandon Routh's Kal-El initially take flight?
Welcome back!
Before we delve deeper into the Fortress of Solitude, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more Nerdstalgic videos. After the release of X2 X-Men United, everyone expected Bryan Singer to make his big screen adaptation of the Dark Phoenix saga, defeating Sam Raimi and fully cement himself as the reigning king of the newly burgeoning comic book movie world. However, that wasn't to be. He got offered a deal too good to pass up. The chance to take on, inarguably, the most iconic superhero ever created, Superman. Currently, there's more Superman material being made than ever before, with a live-action franchise about to start, a live-action TV show, and an animated show currently airing on Adult Swim. However, in the early 2000s, that just wasn't the case. After a string of false starts, including Tim Burton's Superman Lives and the utterly insane McG project Superman Flyby, which even got as far as Henry Cavill and Josh Hartnett's screen tests, WB was desperate to get the big blue Boy Scout back on the silver screen. Warner Brothers had recently tried a new approach with their reboot of Batman. Give almost complete creative control, a large budget, and a near unheard of level of freedom to an A-list director, and just sit back and see what happened. Shockingly, it worked with Christopher Nolan and his grounded reimagining of The Dark Knight, so they figured, why not try that formula again, this time with Superman and Singer. Here's the thing though, unlike the X-Men, Superman had been previously seen on the big screen, and it worked. In a pre-MCU world, Richard Donner's 1978 Superman movie was arguably the template for all superhero live-action media. It had treated the source material honestly and with reverence. Gone was the campy George Reeves version of the character, and here was a grounded and emotional take on everyone's favorite Daily Planet reporter. Well, as emotional as 5 minutes of Lois Lane reciting poetry can be anyway.
Here I am, like a kid out of school, holding hands with a god. I'm a fool.
And Singer? He was a massive Superman fan, so what did he want to do when he received this blank check offer from WB? He wanted to go back to the source. Not even metaphorically, literally. He wanted his Superman to be a direct continuation of the Reeve Donner films, or at least the first two. Nuclear Man? That's obviously too far. So all the parties involved set about finding a new Superman, and everyone agreed mirroring the casting of Christopher Reeve, and unknown was the way to go.
My name is Brandon Routh, and I am testing for the role of Clark Kent, aka Superman.
Obviously, Routh got the part. Despite appearing in the What a Girl Wants video and a splattering of other minor roles, Routh was indeed an unknown. His turn as the lone survivor of Krypton would pour rocket fuel onto his career and cement him as an instant celebrity and bankable star. Or at least, that's what anyone in his shoes would have been expecting. Unfortunately, that's not exactly what happened. As previously mentioned, Superman Returns takes place after Superman 2, effectively decanonizing Superman 3 and Superman 4 Quest for Peace. In the film, Superman has gone missing. He's left Earth in search of something. We follow him as he returns, attempting to mend the fractured relationships he's left in his wake. The plot of the film sees him going up against Lex Luthor, who has yet another land scheme going. This time, Luthor is growing islands made of kryptonite out of the ocean. The film is a mature adult story about how difficult it can be to maintain relationships and how life inevitably moves on.
I moved on. So did the rest of us. That's why I wrote it. The world doesn't need a savior.
It doesn't take a genius to point out the fact that Routh's portrayal of Superman is keenly indebted to Christopher Reeve. Maybe a bit too much so. But honestly, that's not the reason that his iteration of Superman faltered. There's two conversations to be had here. One, the mistakes or miscalculations within the movie, and then two, the box office numbers. Superman Returns was a massive swing in 2006 when it was released, and not only because it was trying to recapture the magic of the Donner films, which is almost impossible, but because Fandom had not exactly caught up to that idea. The filmmakers chose to use Superman in some potentially divisive ways, and that might have been part of the reason why the public opinion of Routh as Kal-El was so split. A prime example being, Superman doesn't really fight anyone throughout the entirety of the runtime. Sure, he saves some people from a crashing plane, a sequence that was originally created, storyboarded, and prevised for Superman Flyby, that Singer and company utilized for Returns as a cost-cutting measure, but it also makes Superman as a character feel very passive. However, the main issues with the character are connected to his disappearance. Upon his return, he discovers that Lois Lane is with another man and has a child, presumably with him. However, in the climax of the film, when the kid throws a piano, it's very apparent that his father is Superman, but Lois seems shocked by this revelation. This creates a strange plot hole in the movie where it's not fully clear that Lois is fully in on what is happening or what happened to her, painting Superman as someone who's not honest or forthright with his partners. Is this because of the magic kiss at the end of Superman 2? Maybe, but then why is there no confrontation about this situation in the film itself? The strangest piece of the puzzle is the ending of Superman Returns, though. After Superman realizes who Lois's son belongs to, he visits them and then thinks better of becoming involved in the young boy's life. When Lois asks if they'll see him again, he says,
"I'm always around."
This sequence is theoretically intended to make the Man of Steel seem mature, and that he's not attempting to break their existing familial unit, and that Superman is growing and maturing in a way previously unseen. This is the filmmakers saying, "We're taking Superman into places that everyone else sees as not doable for the character." However, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Superman isn't fallible. He does the right thing all the time. He doesn't kill, he doesn't make mistakes, he's aspirational, he's not human, he's a fictional character. And through him, we have the wish fulfillment of being perfect as well, despite that not ever being a reality for us. These two components left some audiences cold on Superman Returns and Routh's portrayal of the character specifically, and that was reflected in the box office. The film pulled in $391 million worldwide off a budget of $270 million. Why was the budget so high? Because the previous decade of development was counted against the film's balance sheet. While not an outright failure, the film didn't succeed in the way Warner's had hoped, and also specifically didn't seem to be universally embraced by fans. The lukewarm critical reception coupled with the underperformance proved to be the kiss of death for the film's hopes of launching a franchise. For a long time after the film left theaters, Routh, Singer, and all involved promised that they were working on a down and dirty, more smaller scale action-packed sequel. Something more akin to Wrath of Khan is how all involved kept referring to it. This film would be titled Man of Steel. Unfortunately, the clock ran out on Routh's Superman, and that was that. Or at least it was until he joined the Arrowverse as Ray Palmer, aka The Atom, and then eventually during the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, reprising the role of Superman from Superman Returns.
It's actually one of the least insane things I've ever heard.
Superman Returns holds an odd place in the pantheon of Superman feature films. Objectively, it's not the worst, and yet it somehow gets overlooked. The film's emphasis on the internal world of Superman and the romantic and relationships strained in his life in retrospect play better than they did at the time. In many ways, Superman Returns feels like it would have been a much better second entry into a rebooted Superman franchise than a ground return to glory. Superman Returns was an interesting experiment, its director at the height of his powers being given a completely blank canvas and a fresh-faced star in the making being asked to do the impossible. It's no wonder it didn't work out the way everyone was initially hoping. However, with time and a little perspective thanks to other Superman media fumbling their characterization even worse, Superman Returns shows that it has a lot to offer. Is it flawed and a bit poorly defined? Yes, but on a metaphorical level, that's exactly what Routh and the rest of the creatives were attempting to illustrate. We're all a little flawed, and that doesn't define us. It's our best days that are the ones we're remembered for, not our worst. And well, that's all we have for this episode. What do you think? Is Superman Returns unfairly maligned? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, please like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this one.